If you're someone that has had a past where you struggle with boundaries, with sexual boundaries yourself, I would advise not to kiss, because kissing...
Not to kiss at all?
And yeah, baby, someone can touch your thighs. And then,
and what happened?
They will start...
This is a men's thing?
Yeah. Yo, someone can you can touch your shoulders, and then that alone they can start shaking like so I feel like boundaries, we need to be careful the way we like we dissect the conversation. Everyone has your own triggers.
Hey you guys,
What's good, family?
Welcome back to our YouTube channel.
Welcome newbies, welcome all folks, welcome all of you guys. Let's do this.
Guys, I am Leticia and here is my husband Clement.
Yes.
And together we are with the Arhens.
That's it. So on this channel, if you're new here, expect relationship talks, expect faith, because we both Christians, and expect our lifestyle. Sometimes we're going to be posting vlogs and all the stuff like that, yeah.
That's right.
That's
baby.
right, eh? All right.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about boundaries, because boundaries are very, very important because we are social beings and because we have to live in society with other human beings. You need boundaries in all aspects, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, and in your marriage as well. So we're talking about boundaries because now we're in a different space outside of dating. So boundaries look a little bit different because some boundaries have been lifted. You know what I'm saying? Are you not happy that boundary is lifted?
What boundaries? Of course.
That boundary that you like.
That I like. You don't like that boundaries? Oh, please.
Okay. In this video, we're going to talk about what boundaries are, why they're important, what it looked like for us in the Christian dating relationship, and I guess the reason why we had them in the first place and how we managed to maintain them up until marriage.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about these things. It's a very important topic. Some of you guys have DM'd us personally about how to set boundaries in your own respective relationships. So this is probably going to answer most of your questions.
Exactly. So let's begin with what are boundaries in a simple way. What are boundaries? How do you define boundaries? I
would say boundaries are limits. So if, say, this is my space and I put this thing here, this blanket here, and I so this is like my boundary. This is so you cannot bypass, you cannot cross it. If you do, then you are overstepping your bounds, you're overstepping your limits. That means you're not respecting the boundaries, the limits that I've put, and
consequently not respecting you.
Exactly. In a more Christian way, God himself, when he created the world, when he created nature, he created boundaries. He made a separation between the sky and the earth. He made a separation between the water. He put limits. Even in the book of Job or Proverbs somewhere, he says that he put limits from water and land. That
you would go this far, but not go any further.
Exactly.
That's a perfect definition of boundaries.
So God himself, he even in our own relationship with God, there's boundaries. Just because God is our Father doesn't mean we can just go to him. We can do whatever we like. So even God himself has boundaries. So how we view boundaries says a lot. Even so anyways, all that is to say that boundaries itself is so like fundamental even in our own relationship with God. And so when it comes to us, I
was gonna say, because I know you, the thought that you were about to say but you didn't complete, I think what you were gonna say is that how we respect other people's boundaries say a lot about how we privately with God upholds those boundaries as well. I remember we had a conversation a while ago. I remember you had told me something about, like, you tied it to how when God says, like, how can you love me that you do not see if you do not love your neighbor that you do see? There's an aspect of our relationship with other people somehow reflecting where the disposition of our heart privately is with God as well.
That's it. No, it's so important. And
I read your mind.
I don't know. So that is why we want to talk about this, because it has so many angles to it,
many layers.
And so why is it important to have boundaries in a relationship?
I think we kind of slightly touched on that, but want to focus on like a Christian relationship. And what you would find with most Christians, if not all Christians, I hope, is that we want to preserve ourselves until marriage, right? So like, I feel like at the core, when Christian couples that are dating talk about boundaries, you're talking about ways to make sure that they don't fall into sexual sin. Although boundaries in general should be more than just, how to avoid having sex before marriage.
100%. If someone does not respect your boundaries in terms of how they talk to you, if say there's a certain way that I don't like when you talk to me, and you keep on talking to me in a demeaning tone or in a aggressive tone, and you don't respect that boundary that I've set, that says a lot. I feel like it does not always start with like sexual boundaries.
Absolutely.
Right? If they don't respect all the boundaries that you've put in place,
it would show itself when it comes to the sex as well.
Exactly. It will easily translate to how they don't respect your sexual boundaries.
Absolutely.
But in this video, yes, we are talking about
the sexual aspect of it.
100%.
And I was also gonna say, like, really quickly, that when you're dating someone, as you get to know them, and you have boundaries,
right,
and you begin to say no to certain things, how they react to that will really expose what kind of person they are and what kind of intentions they have towards you as well. Specifically in like if you're with someone that is like narcissistic or like a manipulative person, like someone that is narcissistic, they don't like no. They like being in control, So that will show you very quickly when you start saying that, okay, you can't come after this blanket. You start saying no, and how they react to it, whether they try to like guilt trip you into doing certain things, if they're getting upset, oh, you don't love me. If you loved me, you would do this, So it will really let you see how the other person really is. And then based on that, you get to know whether or not you want to move forward with the person as well.
Yeah.
So that's also why boundaries are important.
Yeah, and oftentimes people that fall prey to those kind of narcissistic people is that they don't know they don't have any expectations like for themselves, or they don't have a clear expectation for themselves. So it's like when someone comes and try to redefine the boundaries they've set, they just sort of like, okay, well, like, they just let it go basically. So
Absolutely.
I just want to point that out as well.
Yeah. Since you're on that topic, I guess we can quickly just name a few reasons why, and maybe you can identify with this. I hope you don't. But if you're in a place where you're in a relationship or you've been in a relationship and you really struggled with establishing boundaries, not that you didn't have boundaries, but you had a hard time ensuring that your boundaries were respected, right? And some of the reasons why you often see that, and I'm drawing a lot from, I guess, experience at work when I've met women that have had these issues, and something that often comes out, or that you will notice because they themselves might not see it, but sometimes it stems a lot from not knowing, like having a strong sense of self, a strong sense of like who you are, what you want, these are my values, and having a strong ability to make decisions according to your perception of yourself. I had jotted a few things down, but my phone keeps closing. Another one that I had noticed was, of course, the guilt that we talked about a little bit earlier. So just feeling guilty, I would notice that they would feel so guilty about the tiniest little things, just the smallest things. They feel so guilty. And then you tie that a lot to like previous experiences of abandonment, of rejection. So this constant fear that if you have these boundaries or standards that are high, the person is going to reject you. Even if you're already in a relationship with that person, but just constantly being in fear that if I say no, he will leave me.
Right.
I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, same here. I've talked to a few people as well, in my own circle, group of friends as well, that one of the things that usually comes up is, like, you're a Christian, you should be more nicer than this, and even using like certain scripture to sort of manipulate you.
Oh, that's bad.
And I think that holds a lot of weight, when God, like when the person that is not respecting boundaries bring God into it and bring God to make you feel even much worse than you feel, right? So that's very that's crazy that people do that.
So now we're gonna move on to what boundaries looked like for us when we were dating, right? If you've watched our past videos, something that comes up a lot when we talk is knowing what you want. When you're talking about boundaries in a relationship, even when you've just met someone, it stems a lot from what you want. And it goes back to that, what I was talking about, a strong sense of self. If you know that you have determined that you want to not do this up until marriage, that has to be reflected in the boundaries that you're going to put. Another thing that, we say often, or that you say more than I do, is knowing yourself. It's so important to know yourself when it comes to establishing boundaries in a relationship, because no two couples are the same. And when we were dating, I know there were other couples around us that were dating at the same time, or that had even dated before us, and their boundaries looked very different from our boundaries. So maybe we could break it down from little things like kissing. Should there be any boundaries around kissing?
Again, the way I answer this question is very subjective, and I'm putting this disclaimer because we did kiss before getting married. If you're someone that has had a past where you struggle with boundaries, with sexual boundaries yourself, I would advise not to kiss, because kissing...
Not to kiss at all?
Yeah, baby, someone can touch your thighs, and then
and what happened?
They will start.
This is a men's thing.
Yeah, someone can you can touch your shoulders, and then that alone they can start shaking like. So I feel like boundaries, we need to be careful the way we. We dissect the conversation. Everyone has your own triggers, especially when it comes to guys, and even some women as well. But I'm talking as a guy because I'm a guy, you feel me? Start with communication, knowing what you want, but also knowing how to communicate what you want clearly. That listen, if you know that this is something that is triggering, and then you don't communicate to the person, and the person keeps on doing it, and you don't say anything, that's also, I would say that if you are someone that has struggled in the past with sexual boundaries, I would advise against kissing, because, as I said, your mind can start traveling in so many ways, and that is where it first starts, right?
Yeah. I've met some couples where kissing has been a very, very big issue, even when the person didn't have any previous sexual experience. So I feel like it really goes to...
But baby, there are different ways that people can have sexual experience without actually doing it all. Like say, for example, if someone because the thing is that there are a lot of folks that grew up in church where they did not necessarily date anyone, but then they're watching porn, but then they're masturbating, right? So it's yes. They've not engaged in the doo-doo, but they struggle with lust.
Right. Okay. So I guess it really goes back to then knowing what your own triggers are, and being able to communicate.
That's right. So as I said, you can touch. Someone can touch your thighs, and that alone is, that alone is dangerous. You see?
That one I can understand. I'll just come and I'll do this, and you're triggered.
I'm telling you, people have deep struggles. You guys should let me know in the comments if what I'm saying is false. But people have stuff, and I know that yes, oftentimes they need to rework that even before engaging in relationship, but. Sometimes it's not the case, right? They're already in a relationship,
right?
So it's really communicating that, and that is why we advise not dating for so long. But that's another topic for another time.
Yeah.
So
So then now in our relationship, in terms of our kissing boundaries, Clement was my first relationship.
Yeah.
My first kiss was with him. So we did kiss while we were dating, but for me, I was uncomfortable. kissing, even the first time that we kissed and everything. So I wasn't too comfortable, like, you know, doing much. So our kisses were really like very surface level, like, you know, nothing explicit like that. Even when we got married, I remember when we were on our honeymoon, I'm maybe going a bit too like explicit, but when we're on our honeymoon, I remember that's when you were like kind of like showing me how to kiss, like how to kiss in a different style. You understand? Because before that, it was very, very like, you know, just kind of like surface kiss, nothing.
I remember, guys, Leti was shaking the first time, you know, we kissed.
I was not shaking.
Yes, you were. You were all red. You were all shaking. But this is to say that for us, we did allow ourselves to kiss. Again, this is not for everyone. You know, this is really, really not for everyone.
It's case by case, guys. It really is case by case. In our situation, I knew. I don't want to sound arrogant in saying it, but I feel like I knew that it wouldn't go further than anything when we kiss, if we kissed, because either ways, even when I was kissing him, it was never like any long kiss because, like I said, I didn't have too much experience. I wasn't eager to do anything. You know, it might be unpopular, but even the whole sexual aspect was not something that I was looking forward to personally. I was, you know, very scared or timid in that area, so I knew we wouldn't go there because so
and also when what phase or what stage in the relationship is it okay to kiss? I would say if you guys just started being official, there is no like end goal for marriage. Marriage has not been talked about in the relationship yet. I would advise not to. I don't know. What do you think?
It's case by case, right? I feel like for some people, kissing is something that is very precious. It's more secret than for someone else that maybe has had a lot of experience in the past. I know that for me, it was something that was sacred for me to kiss someone, and I wanted to kiss someone that I know
you're gonna get married to.
Yeah, I'm gonna get married to, and it's serious. And even before we kissed, you know, we did talk. I remember I had told you that not even the kissing, when we started dating, I told you that this dating, you're going to marry me, whether you want it or not. We'll get married.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like that had to be there.
And I'd come to see your parents.
And he had already come to see my parents. He had brought my parents like wine, you know, formal way to kind of like introduce himself. He had stated his intentions for marriage to my parents before any of that happened as well. So
very contextual.
It's case by case, but I think it's important to know as a Christian, it's important, like it's not we're saying the Christian context specifically, it's important to know where the relationship is heading before you decide to, you know, be doing those things.
Exactly. So, you know, just because y'all made it official, there is no end plan to get married. We advise that maybe it's not it's no good idea to just be, you know, going around kissing everyone at church, right? So no, we don't advise for that. Like, what about other forms of
yes, one that I know from couples around was staying alone in closed spaces, like staying alone in the house or in the room. I feel like it's really the same thing as the kissing one in terms of like really knowing yourself. With this one, I also want to bring that Bible passage that talks about you cannot hold fire to your chest, you know, and expect not to get burned. I really do believe it's case by case, and previous experience should be considered as well. In my surroundings, I've seen the couple that I have in mind, when they hanged out, they never hanged out like alone. There was always like a chaperone or someone with them. When it came to like sleepovers, it was never like just them two in the house. You know, if they were in the house, it was like he would be maybe in a different room, she would be in a different room, or she would go and sleep with her mom, you know, to make sure that he has his own room, so that they were never like, you know, on the same bed together and stuff. So yeah.
Those kind of boundaries are very wise in that sense, because you're not giving yourself, you know, the space for, like, you're not testing God I find,
Or
sometimes.
yourself.
Well, yeah, like you're not testing God, like, or yourself. Sometimes we will pray that God give me the strength for this, but then we'll put ourselves in situations where we will get tested, and then we'll feel bad, and then we will blame it on the other person. One thing also that I want to say is that in the church, having grown in church, I know a lot of this where they put excessive boundaries on couples with good intentions, right? For the couple to be godly, to be pure before a marriage, which is all good. But at the same time, I think that it has also created this like purity culture where I would say that a lot of couples don't know themselves. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. A lot of couples don't know themselves in the sense that it's like there's some Christian circles that like prohibit couples like getting hugging. I think that we need to also briefly speak about excessive boundaries that are being imposed in some Christian circles. Again, like most of these circles, they have good intentions, like they want the couple to be pure before God, they want them to be, but then I think that it creates that again, like this purity culture where you feel like you don't know your partner when you actually get to marry them. You can't even greet them. You can't even look at them too much in the eye, right? I think that is
really.
I do want to talk about both sides as well. I'm sure like there are people that are watching us that are from those type of like circles, which is good if that's what God has placed you. I would say like submit and all that. However, you do want to be mindful that it can become very, very heavy. It can become very heavy when you do get in a relationship and your partner is trying to even, like give you a hug or, give you like, I'm saying that like the switch is not going to be just like that. It might take a while for you to get used to. I feel like I'm rambling a lot, but like, do you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I kind of get it. I feel like because I've not been exposed to that kind of circle, I don't fully get it. But I also know that in our relationship specifically, when we got married, it still took me a minute to get comfortable with you.
Yeah.
Like for you to not hug, because we did hug while we were dating, but it took me a minute to be comfortable with around
I guess let me explain.
What would be the difference with that?
Like I'm talking more about Christian circles where there's a bit of like legalism.
Okay.
Where it's like, like the pastor controls every relationships.
Right.
Where it's like, you can't even see the person outside of the
church.
boundaries is so tight.
Right. Okay.
Only to the four walls of the church. I guess that's more for good example, because I have friends and I know people that have been in that. I've also experienced that where I was like talking to this girl, this is all before you, Leti, where the pastor was like controlling everything about this girl. It's like she could not talk to me a certain time. Again, like all that might be wise, but I think that it was a bit excessive.
Right.
It's like how do you expect this person to know them
know you
if you're putting all these impositions and these compulsions.
Now I get it. Now I get it. You had briefly talked about that experience where it's like you can't talk on the phone even for like a certain amount of time because it had to be ran by the pastor. If you were going to see her like for a coffee or something, it has to be ran by the pastor. Okay, now I get it. And that's true, that can be quite a lot.
So it's how Jesus says that they put heavy burdens on the people that
they themselves are not
they themselves. It's like when you ask the pastor, did you actually do that? You find out that they did not do it.
They themselves were not.
But they didn't impose in it. But again, like some of them might have very, very good intentions. They want to protect you. They want to make sure that you maintain that purity. But I think sometimes they're probably playing too much God in in your life?
It's kind of like what the Pharisees were doing, where like that. I was reading a commentary from like a Puritan where they were talking about how God would say, for example, do not sit on that chair. Like the command is don't sit on the chair.
Right.
But then the Pharisees, like out of good intentions, would be like, oh, don't look at the chair, you know, or don't come 10 meters to the chair, you know, and they will keep adding for the purpose of making sure that no one actually sits on the chair. That's like a random example where there was no law about sitting on a chair. That's just a random example that they were trying to point out, that they would have good intentions, but then they would push the boundaries so much than it was more than it was necessary.
Yeah.
But anyways, in our relationship, how did we deal with space and hanging out alone and all of that? So for us, we did hang out alone. When we started dating, we did spend a lot of time in my house, and our boundary was more so that when we are in the room, we keep the door open. So our first kiss, we were like in the room together and the door was open, and you know, that was when our first kiss happened. And there were also times when, like, you know, my mom was not in the house and then we were in the house together. For every couple, again, is different. Like I said, I've mentioned some couples where that would never be a thing because they knew themselves and they had past experience and they knew what their triggers were. In our case, I know for me specifically, I was not looking forward to being sexually active, you know.
You were even scared.
I was you understand? So for me, I didn't think it would be a problem. And then another thing is that Clement also communicates a lot. When we'll be in the room or whatever, and I'm like maybe leaning on him too closely and his body is doing somehow, he would tell me that, hey babe, let's go for a walk because it's getting, you know, for me somehow. So for us, communication was really there, and he was always able to tell me when he felt like something was happening. So I guess his level of self-control was really good, right? And yeah.
I will also say that one of the things that helped us a lot early in our relationship is having that transparency talk, where you knew what I struggled with in the past and I also knew what your struggles were. So that also, I guess, like facilitated a lot of how we went about this.
Right.
So for me, I get triggered obviously very easily because, you know, lust was something that I struggled with. So it was important that whenever I felt that, you know, this is not the right time, that I would communicate with her straightforward. Because sometimes the body, you know, you would think you're strong. You would think that you can take it. You think that, you know, everything is good. You know, you know, like no temptation that come will succeed. You know, but then, you know, David, who was a man of the God's own heart, you know, could not stand. Solomon could not stand. Samson could not stand. So who am I, right? So I think knowing that also helped a lot in a relationship. And as well, you know, Leticia did not have any previous relationships. She did not even know, because like when you've not tasted something, you don't know if it's good or bad, right? when you've not tasted the fruits, the forbidden fruits. when you've not tasted the forbidden fruits, you don't know whether or not it's good or bad, right? So I think that really helped a lot. So that's why this is very, very contextual, and we really want to, again, the disclaimer is that we don't want to impose how we did it on you. If you and your partner you've set boundaries that sometimes, you know, even even holding hands too, some people is a problem, you see. Sorry, like I'm not trying to laugh, but it's you know, it's serious. It's something, you know, that should be talked right there.
It's very specific to every couple, guys. It's really specific, and I feel like it really goes back to the knowing yourself, knowing what you want and what you're trying to accomplish or where you're going with the relationship. For us, you know, one would say that our boundaries were actually quite loose compared to like a lot of Christian couples that I know. Our boundaries were really loose, you know. But I feel like it really goes with me not having experience, and also him, by God's grace, having a lot of self-control. You know, I'm not saying it to the swelling of your head, but by God's grace, he's a man that has a lot of self-control, and the Bible does talk about how a man without self-control is like a city without walls. And I feel like throughout our dating experience, me being even comfortable to be with him in the room like that is because I saw how much self-control he had and how much he respected my limits, not just when he came to like the physical aspect, you know, like he really respected my limits in like the small things that made me comfortable to be around him in other contexts as well. And just being able to see, yo, I remember, and you might call me naive if you want to, again, this man was my first. I remember we were in the room one time, and you know, I hugged you, and then like I just hugged you, and then I gave him a peck on his neck. Voila! This guy was triggered. And I was there, so I was like, it's just a kiss on your neck. Like, why is it? But he was very triggered, and immediately he was like, yo, he started putting his shoes on, and he was like, yo, let's go for a walk. So that level of self-control is what also made our boundaries a bit more like, you know, the way that they were. So yeah,
again, like knowing yourself, knowing your partner. If you know, you do one thing and you see that you know, is their weak point, and you keep on hitting there, I mean, what do you expect to happen? Yeah. You know, so I think it's knowing each other's, you know, boundaries and triggers is very, very important. And again, you know, maybe in our next video we can talk about our first time, you know, doing it, and you guys will really know why boundaries is so important. I think that next video will really help to show to you guys why boundaries is important, basically.
There's two things that I want to mention before we end the video. Once you know yourself, you know what you want. Once you sit with yourself and you examine what your triggers are, what your partner's triggers are, you know, the boundaries that you know you need to put in place to not fall. And sometimes if you're in a relationship with a man that is also a Christian, but you guys have already fallen because maybe you were in a situation that you sincerely did not think would lead to this. But once that has happened and you both repent or whatever, you now know that you cannot be in that situation because it leads to something. So now is to communicate and enforce that, yo, last time when we were together like this, just you and me in the house, this happened, so we cannot be in the house again by ourselves, you know. Then now you want to enforce that. But the one thing that I wanted to mention is like your relationship with God. Because with the fear of rejection or fear that, you know, the person might go south, or you're in a relationship where before you guys were both sexually active and it wasn't a problem. Now you've gotten saved and you're still in that relationship because, you know, you're speaking to him or you're speaking to her and she's kind of like understanding the gospel and, you know, open to it and learning or whatever. And you're kind of like staying and praying in hopes that they fully come to Christ. And now the sexual aspect is something that needs to be readjusted. That is a situation where communicating the boundaries might be hard, you know, because the other person is like, yo, we used to, what the heck, you know? So really trusting God if he has called you, you know, to like maybe still stay there and see where things are going or to leave. But make sure your boundaries are very, very solid and trust that God, whether that person walks out of the relationship or not, God knows what he has in store for you. And he is a rewarder of those that seek him and obey him. So that's one thing that I wanted to say. And then the second thing that I wanted to say, I forgot because I rambled so much, baby.
It's okay. I have one thing I want to say as well. And I would say that as a man in the relationship, if you are in a relationship, you have to lead. You have to lead when it comes to putting boundaries. In the garden, if Adam would have led, if Adam would have put boundaries, the fall probably would have not happened, right? Because Adam did not put necessarily Adam did not put the proper boundaries in the garden. He did not protect Eve from going to the tree of knowledge and evil. That is where it
knowledge
happened.
Of good and evil.
Yeah. So that is where the temptation happened and the fall happened, right? So as a man, it is your jurisdiction, it is your responsibility to make sure that not only that boundaries has been communicated, but the boundaries are being reinforced. And when you
Drop the ball.
when you fail at that, God is gonna hold you accountable first. So that is something that at least helped me to maintain the boundaries when we were dating, because I had this knowledge that, man, like, this is a child of God. She is a woman of God. You know, if I defile her, if I do anything that will make her feel violated, then it's on me. It's on me, right?
There's this Bible verse that talks about how us being the temple of God, and that God, like, judges whoever desecrates the temple of God. Yeah. I don't remember how it goes.
It says, don't you know that your body is the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? Whoever destroys the body, God will destroy
him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is to say that, guys, boundaries is so fundamental. A relationship will succeed and will break. Most of it hangs on boundaries that is properly respected and that is not respected.
Absolutely. In our next video, perhaps we'll talk about our first time or whatnot, but I just wanted to really, like, highlight the fact that, guys, waiting until marriage is something that is so precious. I cannot count the number of times that I've just, been with Clement and just telling him that, yo, babe, I am so grateful that this is something that I've shared only with you, and I think even in situations where you have you've already had experience and whatnot, it's not even about that. It's like, now as a child of God, you just,
like, when you make the decision that when
you make the decision that now I am going to wait until marriage, guys, I feel like there's so much protection that comes. There's so much safety and security. God knows why he says, do not awaken love before it so pleases. Do not awaken love before it's time, O daughters of Jerusalem. He knows why he says that, So if you're watching this, if you're someone that you've not yet, like Clement said, eating that forbidden fruit, my sister, my brother, it's worth the wait, And if you're in a place where you're now resolving to no longer do that and to really stick with those boundaries, I encourage you to sincerely strive to do so, to know your worth, and the right man will come along and will know your worth.
The right woman will come along and will know your worth.
And we strive to protect it as well.
Yeah.
On that note,
fellas, keep your boundaries tight in this relationship. You feel me?
Ladies, respect his boundaries. Respect your boundaries. Trust in God. Okay? Trust in God. If he leaves because your boundaries are tight in a certain way, he's not the one for you. And God will bring you the one that will not only respect and uphold your boundaries, but will guard and protect it, and will say to himself that I will present her to myself on our wedding day in all purity.
Even if it's not been happy, even if it's not happened in the past.
Exactly.
God is a restorer of proper boundaries. Amen to that.
Amen, baby.
By the way, guys, if you find this interesting and this was encouraging to you some way, somehow,
let us know in the comments.
Let us know that in the comments some of your struggles with boundaries, how you maintain boundaries in your own relationships. If you're married, if you're single, if you're dating, let us know where you're at. And give us a thumbs up, because this helps get the word out there. Subscribe, it's very important. It helps grow the channel. All the good stuff.
Let us know if you agree with this, guys. For a minute now, Clement has been talking about us talking about our first time, because he feels, or he believes, that it might be helpful. Because one thing what is it that you told me? You said that there are some things that some people don't like. There are some benefits to waiting, and there are some sides that are not so beneficial about waiting that you've told me about.
Yeah, listen.
There's some hard truths to that. So if you guys want us to talk about it, I guess I'm open to talking about it. I'm not pressured by him in any ways.
But let us know. Let us know if it's something you guys are interested in.
If you guys are interested in, and then we'll share that.
Yeah. So God is a rewarder, as she said, of those that seek him, those that wait on God shall renew their strength. God will renew everything that you have lost. Okay, God is the one that can renew it. He can renew your purity. He can renew your boundaries, and he can bring someone that will choose you for you. Okay.
And if that mistake was made yesterday, it is yesterday. Better today than yesterday, and better tomorrow than today. Quoting Vodi Boka.
Let's go. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Appreciate it.
Peace. 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 Like my shirt. It says chosen. Chosen by the Most High, yo. Chosen. Peace.
Don't know about you. I made up my mind. I ain't playing games. We're running out of time. We made such a mess of